I just have to say that this episode of TNA was actually, it was alright. So, the reason why I reacted the way I did in that intro is because, to me, this episode of TNA really felt like a hit-and-miss situation, where things happened that came off as really, really bad decisions, but there were some little things that I did enjoy, and some other things as well, which I will get to later on this review. What I do like is how the show is started backstage. Now, normally, I'm not a fan of TNA shows starting with a backstage segment because there's no audience backstage. But I can take an exception to this because of the way TNA ended their show last week when James Storm kicked Gunner in the face and cost him the World Heavyweight Championship, and we see Gunner early in the show, starting the show backstage, looking for James Storm. And the way he's selling himself, he's furious with him. I want Storm. I want to get my hands on him. I want to know why he did what he did. And I like that. It really shows how TNA picked up where they left off. Getting to the first segment of the show, it was MVP coming out. And basically saying that he's telling Gunner that eventually you will get your championship match despite how things are going with you and James Storm. He goes on to talk about the World Heavyweight Championship match upcoming at Lockdown and introduces both Samoa Joe and Magnus as they come to the ring. Now, I do like when Magnus cuts his promos, he's very articulate, he is very well spoken, and he's very consistent as well. I love how he always starts with, "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your champion speaking." So, things like that I do enjoy from Magnus, and how he takes the heat from the crowd. And when they go to shows like London, like Manchester, like Scotland, the heat develops more to Magnus than it does in the US. And it's not surprising because of how hardcore the fans are in places like Scotland, Europe, England, Manchester, or wherever in those places. Now, what I also like is how MVP made this match at Lockdown a submission match, and the odds are in Samoa Joe's favor, and you expect him to win. Now, you can play on, okay, how is Magnus going to win? He has the Texas Cloverleaf finishing maneuver. He could win that way. I hope. If Magnus does win this match, I hope he wins clean. But how TNA has been booking Magnus just tells me that they're going to give this title to Samoa Joe, so you might as well, because of the way TNA has finally been booking him correctly as that dominant force that'll just come in and kick your ass. That's how TNA should have been booking Samoa Joe years ago. And going on through this segment, Magnus talks about how he hasn't touched a stack of deck of cards yet, and I like how he left that open, that okay, what's going to happen at Lockdown in this main event. So I thought that was a little interesting as well, and basically tells Samoa Joe that you will never be the face of TNA, and you're a animal that can't be controlled, and you need to be put down. What does Samoa Joe do about it? Well, he attacks him. He basically, well, before that, Magnus pretty much provokes him and says, "What are you going to do?" And Samoa Joe, well, what's his response? He beats him up. And that's what Samoa does, and he's going to kill you. And I like this first segment. To me, the show kicked off the show very well, establishing your main event for Lockdown. Magnus versus Samoa Joe submission match, TNA World Heavyweight Championship at Lockdown. And after that first segment, the show just completely went downhill. Now, like I said, there were some interesting things I liked, but only in certain spots of the show. The next thing that happened was Bad Influence versus the Bromans versus the American Wolves, the new TNA Tag Team Champions. And you could go either way with this. To me, the Wolves winning the championship match at a live event, non-televised, to me that's something you would want to see on a pay-per-view or on TV. But you know what? You could say, hey, you know what? Anything can happen at a live event, so you never know what to expect. It's kind of like in the WWE when Air Boom won the Tag Team Championships. They won those at a live event, non-televised. So you're like, hey, okay, this is cool. But in this case, to me, the Wolves winning the championships, to me, feels like it's too soon. And I knew that they would win the championships eventually. The issue I have with it is just I would rather see it later than sooner. Now, you can also make the argument that the Bromans have not been very believable as tag team champions. They lost a handicap match to Samoa Joe, and they've been used as Dixie's lapdog regime for a couple of months now. So why should I believe them as tag team champions? So if you think about it that way, maybe the right thing to do was to have the the Wolves, to be the TNA Tag Team Champions. What happened was that Bobby Roode basically told the Bromans backstage that you need to prove it, like he done with his own partner's Bad Influence the week before. And I thought that was interesting because Bobby Roode is slowly turning babyface, right? Maybe not after the way the show ended, which I will get to later on. But to me, I thought that match was just okay. It was a little rushed, I think. There were some fast parts in it where I couldn't keep up with it. And it was supposed to be a triple threat tag team match. I thought that one member of each team would be in the ring in the same time going at each other, instead of having two guys from two separate teams and the other team has to tag in. Why? I don't understand the logical rules involved in a triple threat tag team match. I thought that three guys were supposed to be in the ring in the same time in order to make it a triple threat, especially when you're in a tag team match. And you could probably make the argument that, the rules are different in tag team matches. I can understand that, but come on. If it's triple threat, have three guys in the ring in the same time. Come on. But anyway, moving on. We get to see a backstage segment with Bobby Roode talking to Austin Aries to get him on his team. And also we saw later on MVP talking to Austin Aries and saying that I want you on your team. And there are things that are coming into play as well, such as how Austin Aries put Bobby Roode over more than MVP did. And to me, it's signalizing that something's going to happen with Austin Aries. He's going to turn on someone. So this is getting a little bit predictable because of the fact that Austin Aries pretty much wanted to be the special guest referee in the main event, and I could see it coming from a mile away. I didn't know who he was going to turn on, but I knew he was going to turn on someone, and like I said, I will also get to that on this review. We saw Ethan Carter III come out, and he went one-on-one with Douglas Williams, the hometown hero for London, England, and oh my god, that was painful to watch. That's all I have to say. Doug Williams looked like he was out of shape. It happens when you get old and your body's not what it used to be. I can totally understand it, but it just, to me, Douglas Williams moving in the ring made me cringe, and I didn't know he was going to have a heart attack or not while he was wrestling with Ethan Carter III. And luckily, the match was very, very short for Douglas Williams' sake, because another minute and he'll be on a stretcher. That's how I felt when I was watching that match. And what happened was that Ethan Carter went over in this match. Pretty much, it was a jobber squash match where the bad guy goes over the good guy, and he's establishing himself as this rich, no good, arrogant prick and stuff like that. So understandable the way how they booked that match. Moving on to James Storm. Now, James Storm arrived earlier as well, after Gunner was looking for him in the beginning. James Storm comes out and he cuts a promo, and he talks about how he wants to know how Gunner wants to know what he did. And basically, James Storm calling him out and telling him that I will give you my explanation. And here I'm thinking, he's going to give his explanation now. I would have rather seen that later, to leave it a mystery, to drag it on a bit, to get you more invested in the storyline between these two. But no, they had to rush it because lockdown is only next week, so they had to get everything going to make this work. And I thought it was okay. It was, to me, James Storm could have been more vicious as a villain when it comes to him while he was interacting with Gunner. And a couple of his explanations felt like it made no sense. Like no one cared about if Gunner lived or died in the war. I thought that was a little strange. But there were some things that James Storm said that I do agree with, like how he used Storm to gain popularity, screwing him over with the briefcase, and pretty much handing him the scraps, handing him the briefcase with the tag team titles, the step down briefcase instead of the step up one, and he was the one holding the case, and he's the one that seized the opportunity. And to me, that's understandable. I thought it was an understandable explanation from James Storm. So I get it. I completely understand it. It's just a couple of things that he said that made me believe that the only reason why he's saying it is to gain heat from the crowd. And the stuff that he was saying didn't make any sense. That's another thing I got out of it. But what I did get out of it was that I think these two have great chemistry, a lot better than they are one-on-one, than they are as a team. And after that, we saw them in a fight brawl backstage, where those two just went completely at one another, using the big trucks that were in between them, and they were inside the truck and outside of the trucks backstage. This was pretty much a brawl, and to me, I'm interested to seeing how this match is going to play out at Lockdown, to see if they're going to play on James Storm turning heel, or if they're going to just steamroll right through this and have Gunner go over. I will do a prediction video sometime next week, so you will know what I think should happen between James Storm and Gunner at Lockdown next Sunday. Also, we got to see Samoa Joe versus Bad Bones. Bad Bones, bad debut. And what happened at the beginning of this was Magnus, he was in the ring with Bad Bones, and he pretty much had the tie, laid down on his shirt. So he was selling his fight that he had with Joe very well, to make sure that he didn't fix his clothes at all. The little things matter when it comes to storytelling, ladies and gentlemen. And what happened was that Magnus suckered Samoa Joe into be in a match with a big guy that looks mean, that looks imposing. But why, TNA? Why did you want to make someone like that have a debut with a guy that's just going to absolutely squash him, to go over, to gain momentum, to be used as a stepping stone to face the champion at Lockdown? Why? I mean, it's bad enough with the WWE what they're doing with Wade Barrett, a guy who's 6 foot something, 275 pounds, and he's on a podium and he's taking cheap shots to the fans. Ridiculous. TNA, when you're booking a guy that looks, like a villain, who looks imposing, who could possibly take the heat, don't you want to book him in a better match than having him face Samoa Joe? Wrong place, wrong time. That's all I have to say. But on the flip side of it, I still love how TNA has been booking Samoa Joe for the past number of months now, like he should have been years ago, but at the expense of Bad Bones? Please. Anyway, moving on. We get to see Kurt Angle being inducted into the Hall of Fame. So, before that, we saw Jeremy Borash pretty much state his opinions and introduces Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle comes out, he gives a speech, he shows the watch, the retirement watch pretty much, and he goes on to say, without the fans, TNA would not exist. And to me, this segment is stuff I've seen before. It's predictable, yet it was still entertaining as well. This was Kurt Angle coming out, doing a speech, thanking everyone, thanking the fans, his friends and his family, and that he had to take time off to do some soul searching, personally and professionally, etc., etc. We all know his real life story, and Ethan Carter III, of course, interrupts him, shows a video package, and like I said, I love the little things, and I thought this was quite entertaining, the way that they used this video package that Ethan Carter showed, and how he how he used the speech balloons while he was performing actions on Kurt Angle, like I'm going to tweet this and stuff like that. Yes, I'm going to eat his leg for lunch. I thought that was just funny as hell, and like I said, the little things matter, and I love how I love the dubbed in "This is wrestling" chants, and so I thought that was just gold. And the way Ethan Carter sold that segment was actually pretty entertaining. And like I said, this is stuff I've seen before. We see Bobby Roode do it when he tells Kurt Angle, hey, you have a torn MCL, you have a torn ACL, and this is what Ethan Carter was saying. But no, Kurt Angle says he's fine, and he beats him up. It was very predictable, yet still entertaining to watch, I thought, in my opinion. But like I said, this is stuff I've seen before from Bobby Roode, and now Ethan Carter is playing the Bobby Roode now when it comes to this whole thing involving Kurt Angle. And they're going to have a match at Lockdown next Sunday on pay-per-view, and to me, Kurt Angle really doesn't need to prove anything to anyone anymore, and I think his time is pretty much up. He does need to retire, as Ethan Carter did mention, and Ethan Carter has more to gain beating Kurt Angle, beating a Olympic gold medalist, beating a well-established TNA superstar. Going on, we get to see a Divas match. Oh, this is where I really chop it up, people. It was Velvet Sky and Madison Rayne versus Lady Tapa and Alpha Female. What could possibly go wrong? Yeah, I figured. See, what happened was that Chris Sabin and Gail Kim were at ringside, right? And Chris Sabin tries to interfere. Gail Kim comes in to interfere. And you have two behemoth knockouts in Lady Tapa and Alpha Female. and they need help to win a match. How sad is that? TNA, what? Why? I don't get it. But anyway, moving on. Yeah, to me, this whole match just fell all over the place. There was too much going on, and like I said, if you want to establish a dominant female knockouts, you don't have them win by not a clean win, a dirty win. It's ridiculous. Anyway, moving on. Samuel Shaw. We get to see Samuel Shaw, and I thought, based off last week, we saw Samuel Shaw and Christy Hemme in 4 segments that were pretty much about a minute to 2 minutes, and I thought they were really good. They're establishing Samuel Shaw as that creepy bastard. And what does the audience chant? Creepy bastard. So I like the little things that they're chanting. And every superstar, no matter who you are, if you're Samoa Joe, Magnus, Ethan Carter, or even someone like Madison Rayne. Oh, I'm going to use Madison Rayne as an example. That should be fun. To me, every superstar on TNA needs that one chant that they can get behind and use. And Creepy Bastard is a good one for Samuel Shaw because that's what he is. And I love how Samuel Shaw has developed his character week after week after week ever since he started it. And I'm interested to see where this is going to go, because what happened was that he invites Christy Hemme to the ring to clear everything up. He goes on to say that he's protecting her and that he wants more. Out comes Mr. Anderson and pretty much calling the Samuel Shaw creepy bastard and told him that the relationship between you and Christy is not real. And then Samuel Shaw pretty much disrespects Christy Hemme by saying that women like her are always available, and he gets the slap from Hemme, and he gets in her face. He's about to do something, and then Anderson comes in and saves the day on Samuel Shaw, only to fall victim to his finishing maneuver, this weird sleeper-like Cobra Clutch Kata maneuver. And you could tell while he's applying that move, you can see that Samuel Shaw is saying, shh, go to sleep, or something like that to Mr. Anderson. And that's what separates a good character. If you have a slowly well-developed character, you want to give him a move that suits him. And it does. This move, to me, suits Samuel Shaw. The one thing I do hope for with Samuel Shaw is that I hope he does improve on the mic. To me, he's okay. He's just okay. But I think if he improves as time goes on, he could be very solid in cutting his promos. And another thing I like to see happen is to have him in more matches as well. And I think, to me, this rivalry between Mr. Anderson is something different. It's something new. It's something fresh. It's something we've never seen before. And I think that they could go a great length to have Samuel Shaw go over Mr. Anderson. And to me, this is a good way to develop Samuel Shaw. Put him in a rivalry. You don't want to rush this feud between Anderson and Samuel Shaw. Let it play out and have Samuel Shaw develop his character even more. And I'm also interested to see where Christy Hemme is going to come into play. Is she going to be the person in the middle, or is she going to be a separate story with Samuel Shaw? To me, it would be a lot more believable, and it would make more sense if Samuel Shaw and Christy had their own story instead of Christy Hemme being put in a love triangle. And we all know that's not going to happen because Mr. Anderson has a wife and kids, so why bother with that? Anyway, moving on. The main event of this week's episode of TNA was Bobby Roode versus MVP with Austin Aries as a special guest referee. And like I said, around the beginning of this review, that Bobby Roode might turn babyface. It's still a question that remains to be seen, because to me, this match focused on one person and one person only, Austin Aries. You had the backstage segment with Bobby Roode, you had another one with MVP. Both guys want Austin Aries on his team. And to me, that tells me that Austin is going to turn on someone. What happens? He does. Austin Aries turns on MVP in the match, and Bobby Roode wins. Now, you can go a double cross angle and cost Bobby Roode at lockdown, therefore MVP, his team, gets the win and gets control of TNA. You can do something like that, and it would make perfect sense, because really Austin Aries really, to me, doesn't feel like he needs to turn on MVP, because there's no real issue. I don't see the storyline issue that he has with MVP. And in the same time, with the whole thing with James Storm and Gunner, I do see why Gunner turned on James Storm, but I don't understand the logic behind Austin Aries turning on MVP. To me, it just felt like it came out of nowhere, and there was no build-up to it. So I'm on the fence when it comes to Austin Aries turning on MVP. So I can see that double cross, the theory, come into play at Lockdown. Overall, this episode of TNA, I thought it was just okay. It wasn't the greatest TNA episode I watched. Compared to last week, it wasn't as good. To me, it felt like after the first segment, it went downhill, and then it went from one scene after another, after another, with no flow. And to me, it felt like an awkward whole show to watch. While I was watching this show on this very screen right in front of me. And if you saw the show, what did you think about it? Comment below and let me know. While you're at it, you can follow MRB Wrestling on Twitter. You could like Mick Rock and Bolt Wrestling Reviews on Facebook. And you can even hit that very subscribe button down below this video. And on the final note, to all you viewers watching, get plenty of rest. And always do your best.